providing. So do not call yourself providers or believe you're qualified to speak on providing. So what would be the qualification of provision? I think this is actually a really good question, because I think this is where I believe the erosion of couples start to happen. Because this question's got a feeling of disrespect in it a little bit. Do you see? I think this is where the erosion between men and women starts to happen. And this question's got a bit of a trigger behind it that's trying to start the war. I don't like that. I'll be honest with you, I don't like it. It's one of those questions. No, no, no. I'm being serious. Like I started to realize that, because, like I said, when I went to the men's side, they do the same thing. They it's the question is trying to pose it in a way, and I think after what we've spoken about for the past hour, what we've spoken about, it was never. I never spoke about paying 100%. When we talk about being a provider, we're talking about being able to provide. That doesn't mean you pay 100%. Some people can afford to do that. Some people can afford to do that, and we thank God for their ability to do so. But we're talking about our roles now. Do you see what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So in that sense, we still provide, even though we might not pay the full 100%, or someone doesn't pay the full 100%. I think that's. I just felt like the question's got a little bit of a. You know, but I think it's good to discuss it, because I think this is where between men and women that we do start having the erosion. So I think it's good to discuss. I'm not saying that the person's bad for this. I'm saying I think it's good to discuss, because I can see a few of the comments that have been made. So I'm kind of reading the energy that's coming into the question a little bit, maybe as well. Maybe I'm reading it. Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Burton 91. We're talking to you guys today about a live that we did on Sunday, a men's panel, and I want to address some of the comments, or at least some of the ideas and the connotations behind it. The title was a little bit, pushing some trigger buttons. So I saying, some women have destroyed the safe space for men. Now we must address it, and I really wanted to address this in a proper, decent way. So I actually I took a day out at least, just to kind of let my mind kind of just reset itself and not give my original thoughts of what I thought on the actual day on the Sunday men's panel when we actually had a discussion. And so I want to talk a little bit about women destroying men's safe spaces, or rather, ways to destroy it, right? So we want to make sure we have really good conversations that help each individual party on this channel, both men and women, how to have better safe spaces and how not to destroy them. I think what we have seen in the past few years, especially on YouTube, is there has been a wave of content, from both men and women, which has been very hurtful, especially to the Black demographic, in the way that we discuss relationships. It's pointing a finger, it's blaming, it's derogative language, it's fear mongering. There's generalizations. There are so many different comments that specifically are aimed at firing at the other side to cause damage. We're not trying to do that on this channel. We want to see both sides win, and we want to see Black love. We want to see Black relationships thrive, and we want to see healthy interactions between men and women. That's the purpose of this particular channel. And so I think the task of trying to do that can be very difficult, and it's difficult not because that both parties are difficult, but it's difficult also from an individual perspective. I myself, I'm a man, as you can see. I'm a man, and I have feelings, I have thoughts, but I can also get triggered. And I think one of the key things I learned from this particular conversation we had is, when you are triggered, what do you do? And I think that's been a journey I've had for the last year or two on this YouTube channel, about what do you actually do when you're triggered. What's the next response? How do you respond to the person in front of you? Because the very thing I'm accusing the manosphere, or even Pink Pill or Synth G, or whatever they are, who are extreme on each individual side, how do I then critique them when I do the exact same thing, when I'm challenged or faced with something that is triggering? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what happened on that panel. I am going to call the ladies out a little bit, okay? Okay, I'm just gonna have to call you a little bit, just to let you know where I believe some of them went wrong. Not all, but some of them, because a lot of the women, actually, majority of the women, actually really understood where the men were coming from. And when you hear my sentiments, my thoughts as to why I'm discussing this, I think you'll hear my heart and I think you'll understand where I'm coming from. So if you're new to the channel, do me a massive favor. You're going to like it, you're going to share, you're going to subscribe, and you're going to click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is. Baby, you got the minerals. Let me take a little bit of water because my mouth is dry. Okay. All right. I love that. Lovely stuff. Let's get into this. So last Sunday we had a panel and we were speaking about how men feel, or the pressure to provide, how men feel and the pressures they have to provide. And the context of this conversation actually came from myself, because earlier that day, in fact earlier that week, I was out and about shopping. And well, I want to be a little bit transparent here. I was out and shopping, and I was thinking about the tax bill that I was about to pay. Okay, and then I looked at my account. Obviously, the money's been saved; it's there already. Don't get it twisted. But I overspent in Ghana. Let me be honest with you. I overspent. I was an overindulgent. I was being a little bit, And my relationship with money is I'm a safety person. So it's not that I don't have money. It's when I start seeing money leave that I get agitated. You understand? So I started to feel anxiety because I spent a bit too much money in Ghana than I really needed to. Two, also, the YouTube finances for the last 2 months have not been that great. Then again, I haven't put out content. So what do you expect, right? Because I took a break. So I started feeling this anxiety and this pressure. But I also felt this anxiety and pressure, not just from that, but I realized there's a change that's coming. I've reached a place, you see, it gets to a point where you're doing something, or you're called to do something where everything hits and it makes sense, right? You don't have to even open your eye. You can sleep and do it, and it just makes sense. It just clicks and it goes, right? So it works. But then it got to a place where now I'm having to really put some mad effort to get the same results that I got before. There's a reason. There's a shift coming. There's a change coming. There's something that needs to be, I need to input in order to pivot to that next stage. Because whenever you see that something's slowing down, or when you see something is coming to its natural conclusion, there's a need for another impetus. There's new learning, new knowledge, new understanding, new wisdom that is needed. And that requires input into the situation. I require new input, new knowledge, new understanding, new wisdom, because the vision is expanding and it's growing. So many of you actually probably see me on Instagram, and you might have been following me on there, even on YouTube for the past, year or so. And you've probably seen some of my content has shifted gears. Seen the content shift more towards males or men, in a sense, right? You can see some of the viewpoints that I've come with have been very male oriented, and then you get labeled as soon as you start talking about things from a male perspective. You start getting labeled as Kevin Samuels, Red Pill, Manosphere. You get labeled misogynistic. You get labeled all sorts of names by people, and not often by the family, but often by people who are new here, who have not seen me in my entire catalog. And so they make judgments really quickly, which, hey, let them do. And I think this is really interesting because the journey that I believe that I'm on right now, I want to be very transparent and honest, is I'm shifting the conversation from a place where I want to get more men involved in the conversation, right? Many people keep asking me, do a dating show, do that. I'm date where? Where are the men? Where are the men? Where are the men, ladies? Where are the men? They're not here. Why? Because we're not talking the language of men, right? I've not created a safe space for all men. When I want to say all men, that's within reason, because we don't want every man in here. Some of you men are trash, and some of the ladies are trash. I ain't gonna lie to you. We don't want all of you in here. But I want to create a safer space for people for men to be able to say how they feel, right, and to say what they are actually going through, and to create a space where they can be vulnerable, not judged, and not made to feel ridiculed. The same way that I believe I've created a safe space for women to come on this platform, say their piece, say how they feel, talk their talk, and give their viewpoints. That's what I believe I've been creating. But it takes a little bit more extra work for men. For men, you need a little bit more to be able to create that environment so they can come into it and actually feel safe and be able to begin to actually say how they feel and say what's on their mind, right? Um, And so that's the journey that I've been on. At the moment, I think. Uh, I think what I want to gear towards now is getting men in the space, men to also be able to say how they feel, but be vulnerable, but within reason. We're not here to trash women. Like I'm not here to build content so we can trash women. I don't want those kind of men. If that's what they're on, I don't want them. I also don't want women also to come into a space where they trash men. I don't think we've created that, and I don't think we'll ever create that as well, because I trust and believe in the family that we have right here as Mineral Gang. So as I've been trying to curate that space, and I believe that and I called it the term fatherhood that I heard from last year. That word was coming into my head, fatherhood, creating a space for men to come into as well. The content also, or at least some of the content I've created, is more geared towards men. Um, and so we decided this year that we want to have men's panel solely, right? And then we open it up on a Tuesday night, and women and men can both discuss, right? And so when we open up this men's panel, my mindset is men only, talk how you talk, feel how you feel, let the people know what's going on within reason. And then within reason means there's a way we are saying how we feel, but it does not mean that we have to break the women that we're talking to. If you're angry and you're frustrated, I get it, but you don't have to now make women the punching bag. That's my ethos. So anybody who comes in this panel, that's what we're on, right? So last few weeks has been really good actually. And when men are out of line, what do? We check them. You know what I'm saying? When we have men that are out of line, anytime a man has been out of line, anybody can tell you we've checked them, right? We don't want that in that space, right? Um, but that means also if we're checking the men, we also do have to check the women as well, who are curtailing or coming out of line of what we believe to be the culture on this channel. So last Sunday was an interesting time. Last Sunday we had a discussion, and like I said, I've been feeling a little bit anxious the whole entire week because I was thinking about money issues. Okay, I was thinking about money, and so as I was asking the boys, I was asking Sean and Corey, because we have a specific group for them, because that's the main group, and then everyone else gets added. I said, boys, what do we want to talk about this week? Corey came with an idea which was really cool. We're going to discuss it a little bit later on, down the line in this year. He came with an idea which was, hey, let's talk about how to keep a man. What things women can do to keep a man. And I sat on it for a few days, and then I was like, guys, what's the idea we want to do? And we said Corey's idea. I said, Corey, I don't like it. I said, I don't want it. I said, not that it's a bad idea. I just don't want to talk about that right now. I just don't believe it's going to be beneficial to what we want to steer the ship towards. I want to talk about things that directly affect men in terms of what's happening with you. And Corey said, oh, you want us to get vulnerable? I said, yeah, I want us to get vulnerable. I want us to be vulnerable so that women can also see that men are vulnerable, right? This is because we want to change the imagery of men and women on this channel when it comes to black people. You know what I mean? So he was like, "Oh, you want us to get vulnerable?" I was like, "Yeah, let's get vulnerable." Right? He's like, "All right, bro, let's do it. Let's get vulnerable." Right? So I shot out a few ideas, and then I don't think none of the ideas really hit. It was literally until maybe 1 o'clock, that just with an hour before the live started, I said, "Boys, here's an idea. We're gonna do. I know the idea. But this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do talking about provision, because that's what I was feeling. I'm gonna be honest. That's what I was feeling. Okay, that's what I was feeling, right? I was feeling, uh, you know, that kind of apprehension. I was feeling anxious, so I wanted to get these boys to see what they felt. And by the way, I don't have dependents, and I don't have children, and I don't have a wife. So when I was talking about provision, I'm talking about just providing in general. Do you know what I mean? So now, obviously, Corey says, "I've got even a friend who wants to come and join." I said, fantastic. Let him join. More men, the merrier. We want to see more men on this channel so we can have more greater conversations. Shout out Bronzebird. He's been here for a long time. I appreciate you, bro. Much love. Bronze says he's got his feelings hurt. I appreciate you, bro. And thank you to the ladies as well. Elsid, Sophia as well. Love chat. Love Toya. Love Latoya. And no. Appreciate you. Yes, I am risk averse. Very. JR, appreciate you too. And so we got onto the live, and the funny thing was, just a few hours before that, I was on I was on the Lapeef network talking to a gentleman, and we're having a conversation, and I was on there for about an hour or two. I probably was on there for too long, to be honest. And we're having a discussion about the hypocrisy of black women when it comes to the passport bros. And some of the points I really did agree with. I just didn't agree with all the message and the messaging and the way that it was so curated to trigger people. Like it was the message was curated to trigger rather than actually trying to bring, as Sophia said, build a bridge so that both men and women can actually start having a conversation. It was more about I want to get at them. We want to get at them, and then getting at them, and then saying, it's women that have always been had a space to attack men all this time. Da, da, da. And it's like, well, bro, then what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? If that's all you want to do, you want to build a platform to attack the women, then what's gonna happen? Like, do you know what I mean? So I'm already, so I'm ready. So after I've come off that live, I'm feeling a little bit like, oh, like that's not what I don't. I don't want to do that. So now I'm really focused on whatever men are on. Like I want to talk. So I talked to Corey and the Maz. I said, listen, we're gonna get on this. Um, let's have a real conversation now, bro. I said, listen, I want you guys to be vulnerable tonight. So we're behind the live, right? So we haven't got live yet, and we're behind. And me, Corey, and Ken are talking. Ken asked me, "What's the purpose of this channel? What you guys do?" And I said, "Ken, to be honest with you, we're here to build platform. We're here to build a bridge. We want men and women to have a safe space, to have conversations, etc., etc. Right?" He says, "Cool, I'm down with it." And I said, "Bro, this is not a space where we start attacking women. This is not a space where we start downing women. This is not a space where we start to try and get a lick back. This is not what we want. We want to try and build a bridge. Doesn't mean we don't hold people accountable, but what we're saying is we want to build this bridge." He's like, "Cool, let's go." So we get onto the conversation, and actually, I pinpointed it. We speak for about, not even that we speak. The topic that we addressed was the pressure to provide, right? And the pressure to provide wasn't necessarily about women. It was to do with how do they feel having to be in that position. So on cue, we're talking about safe spaces now. So I asked these men to be vulnerable, and I said, I want to ask you questions. How do you feel when you have to be the provider? How do you feel when you have to provide? Not the sole provider, but when you have to provide and be the provider. How does that make you feel? That's what I wanted to get. I wanted to get to the grips of their emotions of how they feel. Because remember, I was feeling anxious that day, right? So I'm having a real good conversation with the men, and they're just explaining how they feel, and the way that even at points in time they might even look at their partner and they feel in shame and they feel down and everything. Really great information as well, and just kind of getting into their heads. And then, and again, I want to make it very, very clear, and this is why I'm having issues not only with people, but in general over the YouTube space, is it wasn't the majority of women that were making this type of comment. It was very much the minority. Very much the minority. I want to make it very clear. The majority of our women on that live were in great stead, listening, paying attention, giving us questions that were in alignment with what we actually wanted to discuss, which was, how do you feel, men? And I intentionally tasked the men not to make it about women. We're not centering it on, you know what, women don't help out, women don't pay no bills, women don't do. I don't want to center on that. What I want to center it on, okay, is, hey, Mandem, how do you feel? When you're in that role, how do you feel? When trouble comes, how do you feel? When this comes, how do you feel? I wanted the men to focus on that, because it's too much focusing on what happens with ladies and it becomes centered on them. That's great. I feel that. I hear that. But I want to talk about how you feel. You feel me? So we're doing good for about an hour. I've seen a few comments, but I've ignored them. And then a question comes out, which is what I played on the screen. And it was one of a few, not many, but one of a few. And again, it wasn't all women. It was a very few. And even the some, I don't even like saying some because it's a few, right? Who then began to ask questions, which I started to realize why sometimes we're going to have issues, not necessarily in the space, but in our community and also in relationships around a black, I'm talking about specifically black because we're all black here, around relationships, right? And what was key about this situation was that the question centered women in the issue when it didn't center them. So when I say, let me give you an example of what I mean by that, right? One of the comments that was made was, Well, women are not the only one that provide. Women also provide too. And I saw it and I said, in what part of our conversation did we ever talk about women not having pressure or not going through things? I specifically told the men, we're not focusing on women, we're focusing on you and how you feel. And yet, still, one or two, three or four made it about women and about how they feel. And I said, but it's not about you and how you feel, because I'm not asking the men to say, oh, women don't pay no bills and that's why no, they didn't say that. They said, listen, when I'm in that position, I feel a bit of pressure because it comes from internal. You know what I mean? It comes from internal. Do you know what I'm saying? So when it comes internally, how are you feeling? What's going on with you? Like, how are you thinking? Right? And so some only a few that a few of the comments, and this is what it also makes me realize: negativity is uh such a strong motivation first of all, for virality on the internet, but also as well to cause tension in a relationship. You can do one wrong thing that can destroy five the good things you did. And the same thing is here. You can get distracted simply by one or two mad things happening, or you know what I mean, in correlation. Do you know what I mean? And so obviously, that's where some of the conversation was going in the chat, and I could see it, right? That some of the conversation is shifting towards, well, women also work, women also have to do this, women have to all to do this, women have to do that. And I was like, uh, yeah, we're not talking about what women have to do, because we're not discussing men in the context of women. You know what I'm saying? And whilst I was talking about this, there's a learn here for both men and women. So if anyone's paying attention, I would love for you to pass on to somebody. There's a learn for both men and women here, because I learned it towards the end of the live. So as that's happening, and I can see that happening, it's starting to click in my head. Oh my god! Oh my god! This is what's happening in our space as Black people, but this is also what's happening in our relationships. This is what's happening in relationships. The focus isn't you, but you've made the focus you. The center wasn't you, but you've made you the center. Why did you do that? And then you realize how relationships can quickly, because as the comments are coming, I can see some people are getting triggered by the conversation. And by the way, this is not one of those conversations. You know, um, this is not one of their conversations, right? So interestingly enough, you can see the comments and you can see people are getting triggered and saying how they feel. And how can you and this is now, let's talk about safe space, right? A safe space, when we talk about relation in a safe space, let me put as a banner so we understand. Yeah, explaining the safe space so that I can edit this as well. Okay. But explaining the safe space, when you're creating a safe space, what you're looking for is a play, a platform or a space or an area, a form of communication between the parties involved, where there's going to be no judgment, right? We're not trying to be critical. We're not trying to bash. We're not trying to break. We're just simply trying to listen and understand where the other person's coming from, right? And so now in a situation, um, when you want to create that safe space, and that's what we're trying to do on Sunday night, you also have to task the people within it, like, hey, look, we're not also going to start trying to provoke people so they can start breaking the safe space, because that's also important, right? Because we're doing it on a public platform now. It's not a private conversation between me and you. It's a public platform. So there's an extra rule that's added. You don't try to provoke the bear and then complain about the bear trying to maul you. Do you understand? That doesn't mean you can't tell the truth. It means how are we communicating is very important now. What message are we trying to send? Because if we're trying to poke the bear and the bear tries to maul you, you can't complain about the safe space being broken because you asked for the bear to come in. So the men were tasked with that. Focus on you. So how does it then get flipped onto what women do when we're not discussing what women do? And we're not bringing women in by saying, this and that about women. That discussion never happened. For about an hour and a half, it doesn't happen. But if you go through the comments on the chat, you'll see it. Whole bunch of conversations. At one point, the person knows who they are, so I don't want to out them again. At one point, the person says, well, I provide, I do this, I do that as well. And, I'm not complaining, basically. This wasn't even a complaint. And so then you start to realize how some people are not keeping safe spaces. If they can't keep it here, more than likely they can't keep it in their own home. And look, in that moment when someone's sharing their vulnerabilities, this is the time just to listen and to be able to, again, you have questions to ask questions, but to then compare yourself and be like, I don't do, we don't, I don't complain when you. I'm like, wait. Whether you trivialize it, minimalize it, up to you, but don't comment that. And so, when the safe space, if anybody listening right now, when someone's sharing something with you, a partner, a friend, someone that trusts you, and they're sharing something in the safe space, this is not the time to now start trying to compare yourself. This is not the time to shine the light on yourself. This is not the time to start asking questions that are going to be taking the person off course. This is the time to now have conversation, to now listen and to understand. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? So it's very important that understanding safe space, that when we're having conversation and we're talking and we're trying to bring some light and shed some light to things, you should understand that a safe space, this is not time to break it. This is not time to now make the jokes. And look, some jokes are cool. I'm not saying all jokes. There were some jokes where literally, I was like, yo, that doesn't need to be made. Like, that doesn't need to be made. You don't need to make that joke. Like, that joke doesn't even make sense with what we're talking about. Do you know what I mean? So when you're in your safe space, and whether this is online or offline, if you're offline, understand that there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. You know what I mean? Yeah. Both men and women, by the way. This is not just for women as well, right? So obviously now, and I want to say this as well. So it got like towards the end, and I started feeling, and I'm an empath. So if you know me, that's the reason why I'm on this space. I'm an empath. And as an empath, you start to feel things. Now the men might not say it, because you know why? Our language is often coded with our language is often coded with um words that help us stay invulnerable, especially as men. We have language that's coded as invulnerability. Do you know what I mean? Like, we might say, oh, we're pissed, when really we're not, we're just hurt. You know what I mean? I ain't really bothered, fam. But then you're stressed about the situation. It's like, we can see it, right? And so I started feeling the frustration. But the frustration also, I realized, is when I started realizing that, okay, so if this is happening and the men are sharing their own vulnerabilities, and there's some, not all, there was some, and it wasn't the majority, it was the minority, that were getting involved in this particular way. I said, if people are in relationships, is this what also they're experiencing? And then I started saying, well, these men might not say they're hurt by what's happening, but they can see what's happening. And if you're struggling already to be vulnerable, how much more does it make you close up the gap? I was like, okay, now I see. Okay, I can see the issues here. Some people think they're safe spaces, but they don't know how to actually hold up the safe space. Oh, I see. This is probably happening in relationships too, but they don't realize. Okay, you know. And so then obviously I'm feeling defensive, and I'm a person, when I don't like seeing people being hurt. You know what I mean? So I'm feeling defensive over the men in it, and I'm getting triggered, and I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting frustrated. I'm like, how can we bring this beautiful piece to you, and you do this? And by the way, the people that were doing it are not randomers. That's the issue. So if it was randomers, we wouldn't care. It's randomers. You know what I mean? Randomers on the show, like, yo, if they're randomers, who are they? This is the internet. It's open space. Anybody can join. We don't care about them. They're randomers. And oftentimes, the ladies in this chat, when they're randomers, okay, oftentimes they knock those people out of the park. When they're randomers, I want to commend my audience. They're amazing. If you random and you new and you're out here moving mad and not according to the culture, trust me, you out. You out. They don't you out. You know what I mean? So I commend my audience, because I know my audience are on job. Those who are moderators are on job. They will let you know. Listen, if that's we're not on that. So you get me. All right, cool. So so yeah, so so obviously now get towards the end and I'm getting annoyed, I'm getting triggered. And there's just this great comment by Feme, which it just sparks an idea in my head where she talks about how she felt like, you know what, she unintentionally um hurt her partner and she didn't know, and then he addressed it with her and gave her a hug, and then it was sorted, and it just sparked this great idea because there was a lot of great comments. By the way, there was more great comments, more great questions than they were bad. I'm addressing the bad because I want people who don't know how to hold a safe space to understand this. You need to be able to hold a safe space. You know what I mean? But this comment was amazing too, and there was other great comments, and I'm going to read even some comments. Felicia put a great comment as well, and I'm going to read Doctor's comment as well. So there's really great comments, and so yeah, there was some really great comments, and then when I saw that comment, I was like, wow, this is a great moment, because I've been talking to the guys for the past few weeks and I'm telling them, listen, we're not gonna create content that's solely based on just bashing women. That's not for me. It's profitable, but it's not for me. It doesn't do me any good. That's not what I'm called to do. I'm not about that life. So we need to lead in the way that we behave so that they can also follow the leadership, right? So I'm not about to come out here throwing daggers and knives at women and then we expecting them to behave accordingly and then saying we got to hold them accountable. It makes no sense, right? So if we're gonna tell women, if we're gonna tell women how we believe they should be behaving, first and foremost, let's hold ourselves accountable as men because we believe we're leaders. That's what I told the guys. They said, cool. So when this comment comes in, Femi brings his comment, it just kind of resets me. It resets me. I'm like, oh, that is interesting. Thank you, Fine Wine. I appreciate you, man. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Because I can get annoyed right now and I can go into a rant and just be cussing. But what benefit would that be? And how does that actually help the situation? Do you get what I'm saying? And then when I finish doing that, how can I then say, yo, y'all need to behave better when then I've lost it too? Do you see what I'm saying? So the comment just hit me and I was like, no, it's a teachable moment. No, it's a teachable moment. I was like, no. And so that's why I said I mentioned it on the live, but then after when I took 2 more days to kind of just settle in it, I wanted to come forward and actually address it properly. And I was like, you know what? It's a teachable moment because I'm annoyed. I was annoyed at the time about some of the comments, but as I was annoyed, what was my response? And I think this is really key. Anybody out here, that's why I said it's a learning for both men and women, right? So the title you might have been coming in for a bit of madness, thinking I'm going to be cussing women, but you're gonna get some game, okay? Teachable moment, okay? All right. How do I respond? And it's funny because I have a phrase that I tell my friends. I said, you can be right, but how you respond can make you wrong. So you've done all that work. You feel your justification of your feelings. All right, they're absolutely right. But how you respond can make you wrong. Right. So now I'm looking at the thing and I'm saying, how am I going to respond to this? Well, let me make sure that whilst I may have been frustrated at what someone had said or what some people had said, I have to remember, number one, the great work that other women on this channel are doing, amazing work that on this channel has been happening with women. And I specifically say black women. Let me say that because I are predominantly black. We have a black, well, I think it's all black to be honest, mostly. But, we have an amazing cohort of black women on this channel who are educated, who are intelligent, who listen, who pay attention. And Sean said something really potent to me, which I'm going to pick up as well. And when he next comes on the channel, I'll ask him to repeat it. He says, when I see great comments from women who get it, I intentionally shout them out because I want people to understand there are women who actually get it. And I was like, bro, do you know what? Even deeper the way you said it like that. But yeah, you're right, bro. right? The same way I'm highlighting negativity, I got to highlight the positivity too, because majority on this channel listen, they hear us. In fact, on that, even at live, majority were listening, hearing us. We're giving great questions. We're trying to find out more, going deeper. I have to commend them and look at their perspective to the fact that they were actually trying to be in a place of understanding. So thank you first and foremost to my audience. Thank you for those of you who are regulars too. We appreciate the women on this channel because y'all help us have uh, uh, really great conversations. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now, obviously, uh, I'm looking at and going, okay, so but how do I address the people that were moving a bit mad? And then I'm now 2 days in, so I'm like, some people are going to be triggered by whatever you do, but my teachable moment isn't even for them. The teachable moment is for me and the other men. This is not saying I'm going to hold those people accountable. What I'm saying is there's a teachable moment here. Just because you do what you do does not mean I have to respond to what you do. Just because you move mad doesn't mean I have to move mad. If anything, it gives us an impetus to now highlight that behavior and say, hey, guys, this kind of behavior here doesn't help us. This kind of behavior here doesn't help the situation. This kind of behavior here is what some men are saying that they're feeling and what they're going through. So, ladies, if you never knew that men go through certain stuff with women, here's a great example of what some men are facing. You can see live on our live, right? You can see here live and alive. So now it's an amazing moment because you can highlight that behavior and say, guys, you saw we created a safe space and some people still want to destroy it. So you can do everything, and this is where you can do everything right and still somebody wants to do wrong. So the wrong kind of person in any kind of relationship, no matter what kind of environment you put in, ladies, I appreciate you as well. You know, because I sometimes hear comments, and it's not from all ladies. Sometimes I hear comments like, you know what, if a man just was respectful, if he creates a safe space, women are gonna feel relaxed and they're gonna treat that man better. No. Some women honestly will keep on doing what they're doing, and some men too. Doesn't matter how much of a safe space you create. For some men too, no matter how much of a safe space you create for them, they're still gonna be trash. You see what I'm saying? Right? And for for this particular instance, what we're talking about, creating that safe space for men to even feel vulnerable and say what they said, there was still going to be some women who are going to be trash about it. It is what it is. It ain't going to change, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That's okay. So that's why I'm saying that it's a beautiful moment of learning from my particular end as well, because by not going on a madness and reacting to it, and not being emotionally charged to react to that and possibly saying the wrong thing and even making the situation worse, you know, is a learning curve for myself in that instance, right? So again, I want to repeat: safe spaces are for where places that we create so that people don't feel critiqued, judged, and feel like they're being trashed. We can of course we can challenge, but in the instance of when it comes to safe spaces, what our ideal primary role is to listen and understand to what they're actually saying. And so, yes, Shanna said it beautiful. Uh, you know, it takes two to tango, and that's beautiful. It does take two to tango. You know, it takes two to tango. So we've got to be very careful how we respond as well. Do you know what I mean? So yes, I really, really appreciate the audience as well. I really appreciate what was discussed on that Sunday, and I can't wait to discuss some more on this Sunday again. And I'm gonna hold the men. I always hold the men to a slightly higher standard because I believe we're leaders, and therefore leadership comes with responsibility as well as power. And so I always give men that aspect of responsibility, and that high standard, including myself, because I want to set the pattern, I want to set the tone for where we're going as well. So yes, I really appreciate you guys actually paying attention. Those of you who gave great questions on Sunday was good. You know, so this Tuesday tonight, we're on tonight. We are live tonight, and we're continuing that conversation. But both men and women can come and have their say. Okay, both women and men can come and have their say this Tuesday night. What are we talking about? Well, okay, what we are talking about, all right, right now is what we spoke about on Sunday, which is the pressure to provide. Because maybe women too have feelings of pressure to provide as well. And would love to hear their point of view. It's not going to be a debate. It's just going to be a listening exercise. What do you guys go through? And then we can have a discussion between the men and women. It shouldn't descend into who has more pressure. It should descend into what you're actually facing. Do you go through stuff? Okay, you do. Okay, we go through stuff. Okay, what's the kind of things you guys go through? I didn't know you went through that. Oh my gosh. That's what it should be. You know what I mean? So we're gonna focus on that. So tonight, if you do feel like you have something to contribute, you've gone through things, you got some wisdom you want to share, tonight's gonna be the night. Okay. All right. Tonight's gonna be the night that you can discuss this and talk about this. And break down some real things. So we're gonna talk about it tonight. So if you've got some wisdom to share, this isn't, and can I just say this as well? This live that we're doing on Tuesday night, it's not for this type of comment. Men don't do this, so I don't listen. We're not here to shank men, and then I don't want to hear from the men. Women don't bet. That's why I do. No. Listen, we're here to come and talk about what we're facing, what you face as an individual person as well. Okay. Someone said, ask what time. I believe it is 7:30 p.m. Did they say CST? That means at 8:30 EST, isn't it? 8 o'clock, sorry, EST, which makes it what, 1 o'clock at my time? Okay, yeah. So 8 p.m. EST, which makes it 1 o'clock my time. So 8 p.m. EST makes it 1 o'clock my time. 8 p.m. EST. Okay, 8 p.m. EST. So we're gonna have that viewpoint. So both men and women can share, contribute, and we're talking about the pressure to provide because we're in 2023. You know what I mean? Everybody's having to work and to provide. You know what I mean? I'm providing, but I'm not providing for anybody but myself, and I feel pressure. You know what I'm saying? Like I've got nobody else to think about but me, but I feel pressure. So, of course, there are going to be women too who are going to feel their pressure, and that Tuesday night is going to be your night to come out and discuss with us as well as men, so we can understand where you're coming from. You know what I mean? But yeah, we look forward to it. Okay. All right. We look forward to it. So we're going to see you again very soon tonight on the live talking about, you know what. Appreciate you guys. And I'll put a post on the community page right now so you guys can see it. So we can hear your thoughts as well. Much appreciation. And we'll see you again very, very soon. Much love.